Good morning, everyone. I'm Dick Wagner. Welcome to the CREST Network's regular Tuesday morning webinar. Today, the co-founder, Bill Giannone, is with us. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Dick. How are you doing today?
Doing great. As is our tradition for the past year, every Tuesday morning we present a webinar. Usually I do one, and then the following week, Bill will do one. And the third week, it's usually Scott Tarpley. And he's elusive because Scott is always traveling on large loss commercial projects. And then the fourth week, Bill and I try to answer a bunch of questions that pop up during the month. So, Bill, you had just mentioned the shout out to Scott Tarpley. Elaborate for us, if you will.
Sure, Dick. I just wanted to make sure that Dick and I want to both acknowledge Scott Tarpley today. He's one of our dear friends in the industry and a valued resource partner here at the CREST Network. Scott's having an operation today on his hip. He's had some issues for years, but has always been extremely busy, obviously supporting and helping restoration clients around the country. And he just couldn't put it off any longer, so he'll be going under the knife today. We want everybody in the restoration community, especially in the CREST network, because so many of us get so much support from Scott. We just want to wish him and his family the best, and our hopes for a very successful procedure and a speedy recovery.
Thanks, Bill. This morning, we have somewhere around a dozen or so questions that we want to answer. They cover a lot of different topics, and they're an accumulation of the kinds of questions that Bill and myself and sometimes Scott Tarpley and others are asked during the month. Usually they're asking them as it relates to how CREST can help them. The very first question, if I can get this screen to move, is one that I've been asked a number of different times, and I usually just answer it directly to the person asking, but I was asked it twice in the past month or so here, and so I thought I'd answer the question reading what books, what topics, what kind of studying can I do to learn more about sales and marketing? I get this a lot from the sales and marketing people that we coach. And I can tell you, first off, I'm not going to take the time here on this webinar to rattle off the 12 the best books that I've read in the past year or so, and the title of the book and the author. There's more than a dozen here. So you all can email me. Everybody watching this video has pretty easy access to me. Shoot me an email or shoot me a text and ask me to send you the list. There are, I believe, 12 books and titles, but I do want to mention one specific book. It's probably the single most impactful book that I have read in the past couple years. The title of the book is Never Split the Difference. It was written, or it has been written, by a former FBI top hostage negotiator, and he presents a stunning and a compelling amount of information about negotiating and just simply how to communicate with everybody from your wife and your kids to your partners to your employees and customers. It's an incredible book. It's written by Chris Voss, Voss. It's on the list here. If you email me, I'll send you the entire list of incredible reading. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Billy?
That's great, Dick. And I just want to reiterate, since a lot of what I do with our CREST clients is assisting them in navigating through some of their larger loss invoicing and then discussions about their invoices, that book has been invaluable for me personally in trying to be able to reinforce that same concept when it comes to talking to adjusters. And I'm just going to leave it at that. It's really a book that can help your business in every possible way. So I strongly recommend that as well. We're going to play ping pong here, so I'm going to take number 2. This one has come in. Probably 6 or 7 of our CREST members have emailed or texted me this question in the last 2 days. And that's why it's a very timely question, and I want to make sure we kind of address it quickly. I'm going to give you a very brief answer. Should I think about packing up all my stuff and driving to New Orleans this week? The brief answer obviously should be no. Number one, you never pack up all your stuff. If you're willing to abandon what you've got at home for the possibility of quote unquote striking it rich, you've got 2 problems. First problem is you're not going to strike it rich when you go on the road. Number 2, you don't have much at home that you're even willing to think about protecting, and that says a lot about your company. Clearly, the idea should be, if you are entertaining the idea of going and assisting in any kind of recovery from these storms, and now it looks like it's going to be Laura predominantly, you should always have a game plan. It's very important to not just chase. There are references all the time in our industry to storm chasers. And we all know the stories about the guys who chase and do extremely well, and they're all anecdotal, and most of them are on the internet or they show up at trade shows. Well, guys, what you're not hearing are the at least 80, if not 85 to 90% of the companies who go in search of fame and fortune at these losses and end up going out of business. You need to understand this is not a small man's game, and it's not a game where you just show up and all of a sudden, like Halloween, you knock on the door and they throw candy in your bag. That's not what's going to happen. You need to have a plan in place. You need to make sure your home base is covered, and you need to know that when you go there, there's a really strong possibility that you're either not going to do work or you're going to do work and have difficulty collecting the money. I've written several different articles. I believe I've even done a video blog that's on the website regarding chasing. And 2 years ago, I wrote an article for R&R magazine that you can go back and look at heading into Michael, which was titled, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And it's all about this, and I lay out a 5-point plan. If you do want a copy of that, please send me an email and or text me. And if you want to go on the R&R website, it's there under the archive offerings as well. But please do not pack your stuff up and say, this is the one, here I go. Avoid the temptations of the fools on the internet, guys. Thank you, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. I've got this question. We've probably been asked this, a dozen times over the past year or so. And the comments kind of go, hey, we're doing or redoing our website. One of these just happened just in the last month. Our ebooks or call to action buttons or other analytics, are they important today? Well, yes, yes, and yes. But I want to elaborate just a little bit. The idea of an ebook is usually a downloadable document that interested people, interested in whatever the topic is of your ebook, those people that are interested typically will fill out a short form with their name, maybe their company name, and their email address, and then they can download the ebook. There's a couple reasons why the ebook is valuable and should be on every single website. First off, the ebook can be about any topic or any topics. You can have multiple ebooks about anything that you want to tell your potential customers about. If you specialize in water damage restoration, it can be an ebook about water damage, how to clean it up, what to look for. It can be a whole ebook based on cautions or caveats, things to be aware of, things for your customers to be aware of, so they don't get roped into hiring the wrong contractor. A call to action button, on the other hand, is exactly what it sounds like. It's a button, it's a clickable link, it's something to get your customer or that person viewing your website to take the next step. It could be the next step is to simply call you for help. It could be to fill out a form to be added to a newsletter list. It could be any kind of motivation or motivational action to get your viewer, that person watching, reading, looking at your website, to take some action, to do something to move themselves closer to doing business with you. And then analytics. Analytics is something that I look at every single day. The person in our office here who handles all of the Facebook information views the analytics, or in Facebook it's called insights. They view that every day. We want to know what is hot and what is not. We want to know what topics, what posts, what articles on the blog site were popular, what ones didn't do that good. We want to know, are people going directly to blog articles, or are they landing on the home page and then moving over to blog articles? How are they getting to read those blog articles? That's valuable information. And Google Analytics for your website, it's free. Google Analytics is embedded into each page of your website, and it provides an incredible wealth of information. It would be like traveling across the United States in a car with no speedometer. You can only guess at how fast you're going. You can only guess if you are within the speed limit. And that's what analytics, Google Analytics or Twitter Analytics or Facebook Insight Analytics, that's what they do for you, is they give you the speedometer reading. They tell you what works and what isn't, how fast you're going, how slow you're going. And that's extremely valuable to you to know whether you're reaching clients and prospects. Billy?
Thanks, Dick. The next question has come into myself and Dick a couple of times. We actually have 3 CREST Elite members currently doing this right now, switching their company software. So should I be thinking about switching my company software program? This is a tricky question. My first reaction on this one is to make sure that what you're currently using, you have either outgrown or the functions are not what you need. Most of us are using some sort of CRM, customer relationship manager, or a project software that we're able to keep track of our job information. Maybe some of us are using a handful of different programs that may or may not integrate. I think before we make a decision to jump to the next shiny toy, which is always a very attractive option for most of us, we need to make sure that what we're doing right now is, first of all, suitable. Second of all, are we using the programs to all of their capabilities? I help out a lot with reliable restoration here in Atlanta, and we're going through a change now because we had realized that we had exhausted the capabilities of our previous CRM, and we're upgrading, in my estimation, we're making an upgrade to another program that is much more robust. And we know we're going to be using a lot more features in that program, which will give us the opportunity to eliminate a lot of what I call redundant features. We were doing a lot of entry into our CRM, but then also doing a lot of entry into Excel spreadsheets in order to generate certain analytics. Dick talked about analytics for websites. It's also really important to have analytics on your business. And we were doing a lot of double and triple entry in order to get the desired analytical reports. Now we've been able to discover a software program that can do that directly through our project information. So that's a really big, vital change. But I don't recommend you just jump with both feet into it, because you have to understand that there's a big learning curve for your company. Most of your guys are creatures of habit, and they like to do the same thing every day. You've trained them over the years on how to operate and input into the current system. There's a really good chance they're going to have to learn a whole new way of doing things in another system, and they may or may not be very receptive to that idea. The second thing you're going to have to understand is, for a period of time, which may go on for several months, you may have to operate redundant programs next to each other while you're building up and learning the capabilities of your new program. You don't want to miss out on any information or flexibility while you're doing your current projects. So you may also have to still be inputting into your older program. Kind of like buying a house before you move because you want to do some work. You're going to be carrying both of them. You might be carrying your programs for a few months so that you don't lose out on the capabilities from one job to the next. And then just finally understand that what you have to do, and this is probably the most important thing, is you have to understand the program you're going to. Don't stare at the bells and whistles as much. Those are the things that attract you. Dig a lot deeper. Try to find out if there are some synergies or some abilities for you to either get rid of more than one program. If you're like Reliable, I believe they were using 7 different analytics and tracking programs, one for vehicles, one for timesheets, obviously a QuickBooks or an accounting function. They had equipment tracking software, all different variants. And the new software they're going to, they're able to narrow that down, I believe, to only having 3 instead of 7. That's where the real game changer comes in. First of all, you're becoming more cost efficient. You're also not having to utilize so many different standalone programs, so there's more consistency. And over time, once everybody's trained, your end product should be a much stronger, more consistent product. So for me, you really have to do a bit of research first. And my first step would always be make sure that you have outgrown your current system, or that your current system cannot provide you with the things you desperately want in your company. Thanks, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. This next question came up recently with a brand new client, and their question was a little bit broader than what I put on the screen here. Do I really need to keep up with my Facebook business page or our Twitter account? And it went deeper than that. And the frustration was, I feel like I'm not doing a very good job with social media. very, very few people are liking our page. That the reach, the amount of people that view and see or interact with my posts or my tweets is terrible. And so the discussion centered on first what you really need to do right or what you were doing wrong, in this case with this particular client. This client they weren't even doing it themselves. They had hired a quote unquote social media guru in the industry, supposedly. And what they were doing was they were promising to do a post every other, or excuse me, 2 posts a week on the Facebook page, 2 blog posts on their website a month, and so forth. And I can tell you that keeping up with your Facebook business page is a daily requirement. You've got to be posting something relevant every day. And yeah, maybe there's the exception of Saturday or Sunday, not necessarily, but maybe. But so many people aren't consistent. The world, your followers on Facebook and Twitter, and that repeatedly go back to your website, they want consistency. If there isn't consistency, they doubt your legitimacy. And so, daily posting on your Facebook page, daily tweeting on your Twitter account, and then writing and posting relevant blog articles several times a week on your website is extremely vital. It's necessary if you want to take advantage of the amazing traction that you can have from social media. Let's go through 3 things quickly that you should be doing. Number 1, posting daily on Facebook and Twitter. Number 2, stop. And I mean STOP, stop doing postings of promos and advertisements and things that are all about your business. And I mean fire, water, smoke, and mold. Nobody wants to see a steady barrage of daily or every other day or every second or third or fifth day, whenever you decide and get motivated to post something. Nobody wants to see all about fire damage or water damage or mold. You know, you see the posts all the time? Are you not feeling well? Is your headache and are you dizzy? Maybe you've got black mold. Call ABC Restoration today. We can help. That is absolutely offensive kinds of posts on Facebook and Twitter. I have, I don't know, somewhere around 1,500 friends on Facebook, 600 or 700 Twitter followers on the Astic Wagner Twitter account. And I can tell you, many of those are franchise followers or franchisees. And when corporate puts out some self promotion about fire, water, smoke, or mold, all 100 or 200 or 500 people, franchisees, post the same thing over and over and over. And in your feed, you will see 100 tweets of exactly the same thing. Nobody wants that. Nobody likes that. People want to be educated. They want to be entertained. Nobody, not you listening and not me, want to be sold. We don't like to be sold. We want to make decisions about buying, but we don't like to be sold. All you got to do is think about going to a car dealership. Think about that obnoxious, overbearing, pushy car salesman. Nobody likes advertising. That's why DVRs were invented. That's why when I do sit and watch TV, I sit there with a remote in my hand so I can zip through the commercials. So if you have a Facebook page or a Twitter account, stop making the posts commercials. Nobody wants it. People want to be entertained. They want to feel good. Yes, they want to be informed, but it needs to be thought provoking. It needs to be fun. And it needs to be interesting. And the really big question that comes into play in all of this, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or your website, your blog site, is it's about being top of mind. It's about having your prospects and your clients always, when a situation pops up where you could step in and help, that's where you need to be top of mind. And if they're reading over and over and over again about posts of fire, water, smoke, and mold, they rarely, I mean, almost never, when they're reading those posts, do they need those services. And so because it's a commercial, they tune it out, they block it out, they blank it out, and they eliminate it. So you want to make sure that their memory is triggered when they're entertained, when they feel good, and that entertainment and feeling good is associated with you and your company. And I will get off of my soapbox, Billy.
Thanks for that info, Dick. Next question is, sometimes I get calls for larger projects, but I know that I can't handle them. What should I do? Well, if that burden's too big for you, you always have two options. You can always say no, but a much better option is you should say yes. Now, I'm not saying say yes like the old expression, always say yes, you can handle it, and then figure it out later. I think we have to plan, just like with anything in life. If we plan first, it's so much greater chance of success in the future. So here's what I mean by planning. If you're a smaller company and you have, every once in a while, you'll get a call for something that might be a little out of your ballpark. Let's develop a relationship within our neighborhood. Let's develop a relationship in our own community with another independent restorer who might have greater capabilities than you. You know, guys, the days are over where everybody is a competitor and everybody's an enemy. In this industry, we have so many people that we're up against and so many hurdles we have to overcome. We need to understand that if we can find like-minded businessmen in our industry, we can be friends with each other and we can work with each other, and 1 + 1 can equal 3 at times. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be healthy competition for each other on the everyday losses and trying to get leads from plumbers and agents and the internet. But what it does mean is that when the time comes that you can assist each other, you've got the trust and the relationship built up prior to the phone call. That's really important. Give you an example of something that happened just 2 weeks ago. A smaller company down here in North Georgia, about an hour and a half away from where Reliable's office is, called up the owner of Reliable and asked if he could help on a project. There had been some conversations before, and this gentleman is a much smaller guy. He's actually a carpet cleaner, just working his way into restoration. But he's a community, big shot. He's a pillar of his community, and he has a lot of connections. Well, he got a call for an 8,000 square foot doctor's office that the water had run for 10 days. Nobody was in the offices because of COVID, all unoccupied, and the water had run for 10 days. So we're talking about a major loss. Well, he obviously couldn't handle it because his entire inventory is made up of 4 dehumidifiers and 14 air movers. So he called up Reliable. Reliable had already developed a partnership with this company where they understood what the responsibilities and the financial splits would be. And Reliable responded as their partner. And together, the two companies did the job. At the end of the job, 8 or 9 days later, when everything was finally dry, maybe 10 days later, the invoice was submitted for $145,000. And there is a complete understanding that when the invoice gets paid, the splits are already predetermined. There's no fighting and arguing about, well, I did more work than you. So those were relationships that were developed prior to the loss. You could see how easy it then was for that smaller company to take a project that, when it's all said and done, the profit from this project will probably be about 50% of his profit for the year from his other projects. So it behooves him. Now think about it the other way, guys. If you're that bigger guy, that's a job Reliable would have never gotten. They had the resources to be able to support it. Yes, it was a little further than they would like to travel, but for mitigation, the profits are nice. And that's free and found money that would have never come into them. If you're that smaller guy, you've got the ability to get paid to learn. You're on a job where you're looking at the capabilities of a larger company. You're watching and studying what they're doing. Your guys are working alongside the larger company, and they're learning tricks and they're learning habits and they're learning techniques that you would have to spend a lot of money taking them to classes to learn, yet they're getting on the job training. And at the end of it, you're getting a check as well. So to me, when I said before the 1 + 1 = 3, that's where this can work. You can take a smaller company, a larger company that trust each other. So again, the most important thing is make sure it's somebody you can trust, because you don't want that larger company to turn around behind your back and start talking to your lead source saying, well, in the future, he can't handle it, so just call me direct. We want to avoid that. And with full transparency and with honesty and somebody you can trust, you'll avoid that every time. Thanks, Dick.
I'm going to answer this question the way you would expect me to answer it. Most of you know me really well. And so my answer is absolutely. You need a company to help you, or you need a coach to help your company. The question here is, why do I need a coach for my company? The easiest analogy would be, why does Tom Brady need a coach? Why do the athletes use coaches? And I mean personal coaches, private coaches, one-on-one coaches, because often and almost always your coach can see things that you can't. Occasionally I watch a TV show where it's a coach showing a golfer or a wannabe golfer the right way to hold his club or the right way to swing his club. And if I had a strong desire to be a really good golfer, I would be hiring a coach, because I can't see my own issues easily. I can't stand back from myself and see that I'm holding the club wrong or that I'm swinging the club wrong. You need a coach because the coach can often see the forest, and you can't see the forest because you're stuck amongst the trees. Business owners constantly get so caught up in the minutia and the everyday, putting out fires, literally or theoretically, and they can't realize maybe their attitude is wrong, how they speak as a leader is wrong. Often, and I'm telling you, I was just thrilled at a recent phone call I got, I'm going to say it might have even been yesterday or Friday. I lose track of days quite easily. Um, Sitting here at home, not going out unless I have a mask on, and I don't wear masks. Uh, she called me to tell me, "Oh my God, your coaching worked." Yeah, that's what she said. It's like, ouch. Tell me more. Your coaching worked because I used the words and the phrases that you told me to use with this insurance agent, and this insurance agent brought all of her producers, those other insurance agents in the office, all together and introduced me to them and told all of those insurance agent producers, I want you to use this lady and this company for all of your disaster jobs from now on. We do not want you using the XYZ company that they previously had been using. So, as a coach, I had been listening to what her sales pitch, if you will, what her sales pitch was. And I told her, look, you might think this sounds right. It might feel right to you. It might even seem logical to you, but you're killing your sales by saying that. Stop using what you're using and start using these particular sentences or phrases. And she started doing that. Yes, it was a little reluctant, but she started doing that. And now today, a couple days later, they're already getting their first referral. And this is a big insurance agency. So why do you need a coach? Because you can't see the forest because you're stuck in the trees. You can't see what other people are seeing. And a coach can help you do that, whether it's a business coach, like what Bill Giannone does, or whether it's a sales and marketing coach, like what I do. Billy?
Appreciate that, Dick. Thank you. What should I have in my work authorizations? Guys, this question comes to me a lot. I would say every one of our CREST members has asked this question in the last year because it comes up so many different times and it's such a hot topic on the internet. I'm going to say two things before I give you my little list of things you should have in your work auth. Number one, please, whatever you do not ask somebody on the internet to see a copy of their work authorization. As with most things in life, sometimes the loudest people are the most shallow or hollow people. And the people who like to pride themselves on being internet experts in these Facebook chat rooms or in these blasts you're getting in the emails, who have been in the industry for 3 years and now they know everything, they tend to not have proper information. The other thing you have to understand is a work authorization is a legal document. And just like all legal documents, what works for one company in Florida is going to be vastly different and may not work for a company in Michigan. We need to understand that from state to state, the laws are different as it relates to contractual relationships. So before I give you my list of the vital, important parts of a work auth, always consult your attorney. $1,000 or $1,500 for an attorney to review a document and make some very tangible changes is going to save you hundreds of thousands of dollars of possible exposure in the future. That could be, and I hate to say this in front of Dick and as a CREST webinar, but that could be the best money you're going to spend on your company this year. CREST being maybe second. Your work authorization needs several things. I said it's an actual contract. It's a legal document. So you need to make sure that the word contract for services is somewhere in your overall document. You have to make sure that it doesn't just say this work authorization. You need to make sure it says this contract for services an authorization to provide work, something like that. Check with your lawyer, but it's a really, really important distinction. You want to make sure that it's stated as a contract. Now, in most states, a contract has to have a term. So the term would be what you're providing and what your compensation will be. Many times on our water mitigation losses, we don't know what the final invoice amount will be, so we can't put a number down. So we just make sure that we say that we're going to invoice utilizing the attached price list. And if you're not using Xactimate pricing, if you're using your own pricing for any projects, please make sure that you are absolutely putting your price list as part of your work authorization. That has to be put up front. So you'll either state that you will invoice using this price list, or you'll state using that you're going to invoice using industry accepted standards of invoicing. That would be fine. You should have what's called a direction of payment inside of your work authorization. You should make sure that if the carrier is going to be responsible for reimbursing the client, that they can make sure that your name is on that check. You're having your client direct their carrier to put your name on the check. That gives you quite a bit amount of good protection. You want to talk about the owner's responsibility for payment. You don't want to have language in there that says that you're okay with accepting the money that the insurance company gives you. That is old language. That was language that was put into contracts 15 years ago by restorers because they thought they couldn't get the client to sign the contract if they didn't say, oh, we'll just take care of everything with your insurance company. Guys, we're not doctors, and it doesn't work that way in our industry. You have to make sure the client understands that they are fully responsible for the full payment of your invoiced amount. If you choose to help them navigate the waters with their carrier, that's fine. But in your work authorization, you need to make sure that they're fully aware and acknowledge that they are responsible for payment. You also need to have some sort of workmanship warranty in there. You want to state that all your work, if allowed to, proceed to the finish, is warranted, and that any defects will be corrected for a period of time. Let's just say 1 year from the period. If you dry a house out and a month later mold shows up in the exact area where you dried the house out, good business practice would be to go back and remedy that situation. But then you also need something else, guys. You need to put a clause in that's called right to cure. And if you've never heard about this, it's a very important clause. What you don't want is you don't want that homeowner a month from now to say to you, hey, you screwed up. I have mold, and I went out and hired the best, most expensive mold company in Topeka, Kansas, and now you're paying that bill. You want the ability to go out back and correct your own mistakes and to fix whatever issues the client perceives. That's what's called right to cure. They make you aware of the issue within a set period of time, and you have a certain number of days to remedy that situation. We all want that in our work authorizations and any contracts we write, because we know we can do the work cheaper than anybody else will, and we know that we can probably remedy the situation to the client's satisfaction in a minimal amount of time and effort. So those are the most important things that you need to have in there. Remember, you want to have limitations and expectations of your work. You want to make sure your clients are not expecting you to rebuild the Taj Mahal for them. You want to make sure the language pre-loss condition is in everything that you've got written. Like I said, those are very simple tips. I believe in the next month or so, when I do my version of the weekly webinar, I will be discussing paperwork in much more detail, and we're going to go over work authorizations a little more in depth. I just want to make sure that you understand these general things, and always consult a lawyer. Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Bill. We're regularly talking with people interested in becoming CREST members, and over the past year or so, we have introduced many potential members to the incredible amount of information on the website especially the behind the curtain side, in other words, the members only side. And many of those that hadn't made the decision at that time. And now I'm inclined to think it's because the pandemic is almost run its course and people are motivated to get back on the wagon and moving forward with business and life. So there's been several that have revisited the idea of joining. And one of the questions that was asked recently is, hey, I remember it might have been a year ago when you were showing us all the cool stuff on the website on the members side. Are you adding regular training videos and other information on there, or is whatever you put on and showed us then, fast forward to today, 6, 8, 9 months later, is there anything new and different? Well, the fact is, we're adding a minimum of one new training video every week, every single week. And in reality, it's a lot more than that, because I believe right now we have somewhere in the form of 8 to 10 minute training videos, we have something like 12 hours worth of videos. And that's I'm not the mathematician like Bill is, but I'm going to guess that's well over 100 videos. So we're doing probably closer to 2 a week. And these are training videos. We're adding new and different ones all the time. They're training videos on very narrow, specific topics about administrative processes and procedures, financial aspects of your business, understanding P&Ls and profit and loss and so forth. I'm putting a lot of videos on there about very narrow, very specific 10-minute segments on sales and marketing. Maybe it's as simple as why salespeople should want to get a no, from their clients. Maybe it's about 7 ways to be an ultra high sales performer. I'm looking at who's on this webinar today, and we have several ultra high performers, and hopefully they are watching those 8 and 10 and 12-minute training videos. Yesterday, I recorded something a little different, a little unusual. It was a 24-minute sales and marketing training video, but it was such a compelling, amazing topic, not because I was teaching it, but because I learned this in the past couple months and just wanted to share it with you. It was an eye opener. And so, yes, not every single one is 8 minutes or 10 minutes. Yesterday's was 24 minutes, but it is extremely powerful. We have, and this is an example of webinars. Usually they're done individually by myself or Bill or Scott, but we have over 25 hours of webinar training on very specific topics. We have 250 Maven articles in a Maven article library, all broken out into individual articles for specific industries. Churches alone have 16 Maven articles. Insurance agents have 52 Maven articles, all different different topics. So there is an incredible amount of information. If you want to do and understand the commercial world, there are 12 detailed dissertations. And by that, I mean they're like elaborate college thesis papers. Some of them are 20 and 30 and 40 pages worth. And there are 12 of them on the different verticals in the commercial world. And then there are tons and tons and tons of new and constantly being added forms and documents and white papers that you really don't want to miss. Billy?
Awesome, Dick. And I'm sure you left a few things out. That's how impressive the library is becoming. Again, this is pretty timely for what we're dealing with right now. That's what's going on in the Gulf. Somebody asked me this literally last night, and they're going to work in the Gulf. Is it tough to do FEMA work? The long and short answer is yes, it's very tough to do FEMA work. If you've never done FEMA work before, you're going to get burned. It's not your normal mom and pop water restoration. You don't follow IIC or CS 500 guidelines. So it's very, very different than what we are used to. They determine when you're allowed to put equipment on, when you're allowed to charge for things like dumpsters and generators. They decide how much equipment you can put on. And the normal rule of thumb is you could put equipment on for 3 days, but on day 2, you're only allowed to put on half the amount of equipment you had on day 1. And then on day 3, the most you could have on is that same amount from day 2. It's a ridiculous system for those of us who want to do the right thing by the clients. It's very, very difficult to document properly. And if you don't document exactly correctly, those checks will not move very quickly. So to make a long story short, if you're a FEMA expert and you've done it in the past, that's fine. Go ahead and give it a shot. If you're not a FEMA expert, stay away from doing FEMA work. Tell the homeowners that you'll do cash pay. You'll do the job for X number of dollars, and that's probably your safest bet. Because the other thing that people don't understand when you travel, a lot of times when you travel to do residential mitigation work in a CAT zone, it's very, very difficult to get paid because you're an out of town or even an out of state contractor. Very difficult. Do you have the proper certifications? Are you licensed in that state? Do you have insurance that covers you? All of those things can trip you up. And then dealing with the carriers in that state and then making sure the homeowner, when they get the check, knows to mail it to you 6 states away. You have very difficult lien rights. There's a lot of things, guys, that can make it really screw up. So if you are hell-bent on going to the Gulf because you're already there, you have relationships, my recommendation, if you're going to do residential work, try to do cash pay work. Treat the clients fairly, give them a cash quote, don't hassle them, don't gouge them, do your work, get in, get out, and get paid. Thanks, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. It seems like a lot of the questions that have come to us the past month or so are related to websites or social media. And it struck me when we were putting some of these questions down that it's a really hot topic. It's on people's minds right now, maybe more so because it has not been business as usual for the past 6 or 7 or 10 months. There's been a lot of changes, and many of us have been stuck in our homes or working from our homes, and so we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're searching websites, we're looking at our own website, and the question comes up a lot, especially in the last few months. Dick, what is relevant content? Why do I need a blog? What are blogs? My website doesn't have any mechanism to put blog articles on. And so I'm going to address it like this. Relevant content isn't, my company does water damage, so everything I put on Facebook or Twitter or every blog article that I write or have somebody write for me is going to be all about water damage cleanup. That's not what we're talking about by having relevant content. Relevant content is information, learning, education, and entertainment combined. Relevant content should be where the reader can learn something interesting and unusual and informative, but they can also be entertained, or their mind is thought provoked while they're reading it. That's what relevant content is. It is not posting on your Facebook business page about, oh my gosh, it's raining out there. If your basement gets flooded, call me today. My number is 1-800-123-456. That's not relevant content. And as I move past the concept of relevant content, and everything you put on there should be relevant, I want to talk specifically about blogs. I feel like I'm the social media expert in all of this, and that's not what I'm trying to convey to all of you. But one thing that we have learned, including on 2 or 3 of the websites that we maintain and a couple others that we do for a couple of our clients, is that blog articles are vital to Google finding you and making your link, your website, available to the person doing the searching. In other words, when one of your customers searches, how do I dry my basement? Google should be able to find an article that you wrote entitled, How Do I Dry My Basement? And they would be able to bring that up as one of the very first choices in the Google search. And that's relevant content. Google uses an algorithm. They use a series of mathematical formulas to determine where your website shows up. And if your website shows up, if your website shows up and it's on page 10, it might just as well not show up at all. Your website has to show up on page 1 or a specific article that you've written. Some information ideally needs to show up on the first page. And so a blog makes that happen. When Google indexes your website, as they do regularly, and nothing's changed on your website, it's the same old, same old. It's about kind of like an electronic brochure of your fire, water, mold, and smoke work. At some point, they quit indexing it, or they index it less frequently because it never changes. And because it never changes, there isn't good info for Google to deliver to the searcher. So having a blog article in a new and a different one every few days is absolutely vital to having your website found, having customers find you. So then the question is, how do I get good blog articles? I'm already writing a lot of blog articles, and I'm not interested in or motivated to write your blog articles. But if you really draw a blank, if you really don't think you can write a blog article once a week, go to a company called Upwork, Upwork, upwork.com. And yes, it is an offshore company. These are English speaking, very smart writers in Bangladesh or Bangalore or other places. And you can hire one. You can give them a topic to write a short article on, and they'll produce it in 24 hours, and they'll probably charge you like $12. So there are lots of ways for you to get good blog articles that don't cost you a lot of money. Thanks, Billy.
Thank you, Dick. This one comes up quite a bit because the period of time is here. And I was privileged and honored to assist many of our CREST members with their PPP applications. The PPP loan is nearing the 6-month mark. How can I go about applying for forgiveness? Well, we're kind of approaching that window now. There's a couple of things you need to know. First, a lot of the lenders, you have to ask for forgiveness through your lender. You don't get it from the government per se, you get it from your lender. They get the forgiveness for their portion from the government. You just have to make sure you apply through your lender. Many lenders are not accepting forgiveness applications yet because there has been talk in Washington for several weeks, if not months, about augmenting the program once again in another piece of legislation that is supposed to simplify the forgiveness process. So a lot of the banks and lending institutions don't want to go down that road with a lot of their clients yet, thinking that there's a simpler process coming down the pike. So right now, the best thing I could tell you to do is gather up the data you're going to need to support your forgiveness application. You're still going to need to prove what you did with the money, so that's where we should start. The good news is when we first got the loans, the rules were that you had to expend the money over the 8 weeks immediately following receipt of the funds in your bank account. Well, one piece of legislation that was passed subsequent to that has changed that. You now have the option of using a 25-week window. So if you were panicking that you didn't get all of your PPP money expended in payroll or in payroll and rent or things like that, you don't have to sweat it now because you've got a 25-week window, and hopefully you did have enough payroll to be able to suffice under those conditions. So just gather all those records up, run payroll reports, get whatever you need from either your payroll provider or from your QuickBooks or your accountant. Get that information. Make sure you have any kind of receipts for any rent payments or utility payments you made, and gather all that up because that will have to be the support documentation you're going to use to fill out the application. Some banks and lending institutions had put out preliminary applications for forgiveness, and most of the times, if your loan amount was under $150,000, you didn't have anything to worry about. Those were going to be fairly simple, kind of like the EZ forms when you do your 1040s. It was going to be a one-pager with some simple information, and the government has already told the lenders that basically anybody who got their loans under 150,000, as long as the documentation is in hand, they won't be audited very severely. It'll probably be more of a rubber stamp. So don't sweat it, guys. Check with your lender to see if they are accepting these applications. If they are, make sure you download the application, read the instructions very clearly, gather up your documentation, and you should be able to fill it out fairly easily. If you need any support, obviously, I'm here to assist you. Thanks, Dick.
Thanks, Bill. Next question. How do I know if my marketer is really doing their job? I coach a lot of marketers, and having been coaching marketers for many, many, many years, some of it is instinctive, some of it is intuitive, some of it is a good gut feeling, and some of it is based on the kind of reporting that they're doing, accountability, what they're putting down in their daily activity reports. The vast majority of those that I'm working with, at least now, are doing a great job. Some of the newer ones are just getting their feet wet. They're getting into a routine. But those that I've been working with for more than 3 or 4 or 5 months are really doing a good job. Some of them, like many marketers, they're a challenge. They don't really like to produce documentation. But what's interesting is, even though they're often reluctant, when I get it, it looks good. And so we have our own internal mechanisms and checklists to know if the marketer is really doing a good job. But something for you as an owner to measure is, are they bringing in jobs? Are there referrals coming in? Are those referrals being closed? Are sold? Are they turning into real jobs? That's the simplest cut to the chase. Is your marketer bringing in real work? We had a marketer many months ago when I came on board as the coach, 6, 8 months ago, who had been with the company for a year and hadn't produced only one job. Well, I think everybody on this call knows that that marketer was not doing their job. Bill?
All right, Dick, I'm going to whip through this one pretty quick, as I know we're getting a little short on time. What is fair compensation for my project managers? The two-word answer to this is call me. There are too many variables to discuss in any one Q&A session to talk about fair compensation for project managers. Project managers can be compensated either by an hourly wage or a salaried wage. They can be compensated with commissions based on the success of the project, maybe a sliding scale based on the profitability of that job, sliding scale based on meeting certain metrics like time limits, things like that, or they could just be straight paid a percentage of the job without any salary or anything else. You have to be really careful about the labor laws in your individual state. Certain states do not allow you to compensate people with a straight commission. There has to be some sort of base pay included, or at least a threshold pay that percentage payment meets as a minimal standard. So, like I said, call me. We always, when I get this question and we work through compensation packages, which I've done now for all of our our CREST Elite members. I've worked on compensation packages and reforms with every single one. And every time we do an analysis of the state laws, and we do an analysis of what's best for your company. Some companies love incentivizing their employees. Others like their employees to know that they're being taken care of. It's, again, very personal. No cookie cutter answers here. The answer is what's specific for your company. So I don't mean this to be a tease, but I do want you to understand that this is a very vital question and something that can be easily answered with a little bit of back and forth. Thanks, Dick.
I want to address this very quickly as well. I've had dozens of calls, more than a dozen, many dozen calls over the last several years of people that want to offer, contractors that want to offer a pre-disaster plan. The first question is, do you have a plan that you could send me? Well, if you want something free, it's going to have that kind of value. Nothing. But can I help you? Absolutely. We've developed the preeminent most popular, most delivered pre-disaster plan ever in history, nationwide. It's extremely popular. There are thousands upon thousands of commercial end users that have that plan from their contractor. The question also is, and by the way, if I sign up to your program and we start offering the PREP program, Priority Response Emergency Plan, how long will it take before I start seeing payback? Well, like the classic lawyer example, that depends. It depends on the mix of the types of commercial clients that you sign up. It depends on how your marketer presents the program. It depends on if that marketer selling that program properly promotes your company and doesn't make it all just about a three-ring manual. And the last question, do we need a full-time marketer? The short answer is it's certainly best, but it's not necessary. We have a client right now that is doing a pre-disaster program, and she's doing it 2 days a week. She's maintaining her plumber and insurance agent clients the other 3 days. And this client now has somewhere around 200 commercial end users in the program, and they are seeing a positive ROI. They are getting commercial jobs. The last job they just got was $130,000 or $140,000 commercial work. Very nice job. So yes, the short answer is we can help. Call me. Again, I don't want this to be a tease either, but it needs to have a conversation on the phone. You are going to see an ROI 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, and no, you do not absolutely have to have a full-time marketer. I'm Dick Wagner. Bill Giannone has been presenting the other questions, and I appreciate all of the time that all of you have spent on this webinar. Thank you. See you next time. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Dick. Have a great week, guys.
Bye-bye.